Silent warning. The quantum anomaly detector in Dr. Sarah Chen's laboratory at the Lunar Observatory chirped its first warning at 3:47 Earth Standard Time. Most would have dismissed it as background noise from Saturn's rings or another routine solar flare. But Sarah knew better. She'd spent the last decade calibrating these instruments to detect exactly this type of signal. Computer, run a full spectrum analysis on signal key A7249. She commanded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The massive data streams began flowing across her screen, patterns emerging that made her blood run cold. These weren't random quantum fluctuations. They were coordinated, deliberate, and they were coming from beyond Neptune's orbit. Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her comm unit. "This is Dr. Chen. Get me Admiral Hayes. Priority Alpha." The response was immediate. "Doctor, it's 400. This better be." "Sir, we have confirmation of coordinated quantum signals from the Kuiper Belt. Pattern matches theoretical predictions for faster-than-light communications. We're not alone, and they're coming." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. "How sure are you?" Sarah took a deep breath. "The patterns are unmistakable. Whatever's out there, they're organizing. Multiple sources, moving in formation. This isn't natural phenomenon." "How long?" "Based on the signal strength and propagation, days. Maybe a week at most before they reach Neptune's orbit." Within minutes, the Lunar Observatory's command center transformed into a hive of activity. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the vast expanse of the outer solar system. Sarah's quantum readings appeared as ghostly blue trails, converging and moving with undeniable purpose. Admiral Hayes stood at the center of it all, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of the displays. "Show me everything, Doctor." Sarah projected her findings onto the main screen. The signals began appearing 3 hours ago. At first, they were subtle, barely distinguishable from background noise. But look at this pattern. She highlighted a series of quantum fluctuations that pulsed with mechanical precision. These are coded transmissions. They're coordinating something massive. A junior officer burst into the room. "Admiral, we're getting readings from the Neptune outpost. Multiple objects just dropped out of FTL. They're massive." The main display shifted, showing thermal images from Neptune's automated defense platforms. What they revealed made Sarah's heart skip a beat. Enormous shapes moved through the darkness, their sleek forms unlike anything humanity had ever built. They moved with precision that spoke of advanced technology and military discipline. "How many?" Hayes's voice was steady, but Sarah could see the tension in his jaw. "Initial count shows over 300 capital ships, sir, and they're launching smaller vessels." Hayes turned to his communications officer. "Get me Earth Command. Now." He looked back at the display, studying the alien fleet's formation. "And someone tell me why our long-range sensors didn't pick these bastards up sooner." "They're using some kind of quantum camouflage," Sarah explained, her mind racing through the implications. "That's why we only detected their communications. Their ships barely interact with normal space until they drop out of FTL." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Earth's military forces went to high alert, defense platforms powered up across the solar system, and humanity prepared for its first contact with an alien civilization. Sarah worked frantically to decode more of the quantum signals, hoping to understand their intentions before they arrived. The answer came sooner than expected. At 900 EST, every communication device in the solar system received the same transmission. The message was simple, broadcast in perfect English. "We are the Nexari. Your species has been deemed unworthy of ascension. Surrender your world or face extinction." Admiral Hayes stood in silence for a long moment after the message played. Then he turned to his staff, his expression hardened with resolve. "Well, doctors and gentlemen, it seems humanity has a choice to make." He looked at Sarah. "Dr. Chen, how quickly can you adapt your quantum detection system for military applications?" Sarah's mind was already racing through the possibilities. The principles could be applied to targeting systems, sir. If we can track their quantum signatures, we might be able to hit them even when they're trying to hide. You have whatever resources you need. Lieutenant Commander Park. A young officer stepped forward. Sir, wake up the Lazarus Protocol. All of it. Park's eyes widened. Sir, those platforms haven't been tested in combat conditions, and now they're our best shot at surviving this. Hayes turned back to the main display, watching the alien fleet's inexorable advance. Humanity just got pushed into the deep end. People. Time to show these Nexari what happens when you corner a species that went from horse-drawn carriages to Mars colonies in under 2 centuries. Sarah returned to her lab, her team already assembling around her. As she began adapting her research for warfare, a thought struck her. The Nexari had broadcast in perfect English, which meant they'd been watching Earth long enough to learn our languages. They thought they knew humanity's capabilities. She allowed herself a grim smile. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The next 48 hours transformed the solar system. The Lazarus Protocol, humanity's secret network of orbital defense platforms, emerged from its dormant state. Automated factories on the Moon and Mars began producing combat drones at unprecedented rates. And in laboratories across Earth, scientists like Sarah worked to turn theoretical weapons into reality. The Nexari fleet crossed Uranus's orbit, maintaining their perfect formation. They showed no concern for humanity's visible defenses, no fear of the weapons humanity had placed in their path. Their confidence would prove to be their first mistake. Admiral Hayes received the first successful test results from Sarah's lab as the alien fleet approached Saturn. "We've done it, sir," she reported, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. "The quantum targeting system works. We can track them even when they try to phase shift." "How accurate?" 97% in simulations. And she hesitated, then continued. "We found something else. They're quantum signatures. They're not just for communication or propulsion. It's their whole technology base. If we can disrupt it." Hayes leaned forward. "Then what, Doctor?" "Then we might be able to turn their own technology against them. But we'll only get one chance at this. They'll adapt quickly once they realize what we're doing." Hayes nodded slowly, studying the tactical display where the Nexari fleet continued its advance. "One chance might be all we need." He opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Admiral Hayes. Project Quantum Strike is ready for deployment. Request permission to proceed with full military response." The reply came immediately. "Permission granted, Admiral. Show them what humanity can do." As Sarah looked at the display, watching the massive alien fleet approach, she felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. Humanity had gone from discovering alien life to fighting for its survival in less than 3 days. But in those 3 days, they'd accomplished what the Nexari thought impossible. Now it was time to prove them wrong about everything else. The hidden card. Deep beneath the Martian surface, Commander James Rodriguez stood in a control center that officially didn't exist. Project Aegis had been humanity's best-kept secret for the past 15 years. A network of advanced weapon platforms and defense systems built into asteroids, moons, and hidden orbital stations throughout the solar system. "Status report," he demanded, watching as dormant systems came online across his tactical display. Lieutenant Maria Santos, his second-in-command, responded without looking up from her console. Asteroid belt defense grid at 89% activation. Jovian platforms responding at nominal levels. Phobos array coming online now. The massive chamber hummed with power as more systems activated. Project Aegis had been designed as humanity's insurance policy, not against aliens, but against itself. The possibility of interplanetary war had seemed like the greatest threat when the project began. Now those same weapons would be turned outward, against an enemy that thought Earth was defenseless. "Sir," Santos called out, "we're getting the first detailed scans of their fleet from the Saturn perimeter drones." You need to see this. The main holographic display shifted, showing high-resolution images of the Nexari vessels. Their ships were beautiful in a terrible way. All curved lines and seamless construction, looking more grown than built. But it was their formation that caught Rodriguez's attention. "They're not protecting their flanks," he muttered, studying the display. "Look at these gaps in their coverage. Either their tactical systems are completely different from ours, or they're that confident," Santos finished. "They don't think they need to defend themselves." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Pride before the fall, Lieutenant. Begin charging the Ceres capacitors, and get me a direct line to Dr. Chen at Lunar Command." Sarah's face appeared on a secondary display moments later. She looked exhausted but alert. "Commander Rodriguez, I was wondering when Project Aegis would wake up." "Doctor, I understand you found a way to track their quantum signatures. How quickly can you integrate that with our targeting systems?" "Already done. Admiral Hayes had me upload the protocols to your secure network an hour ago. But Commander, there's something else you need to know. We've detected energy buildup in their lead vessels. They're preparing to deploy something big." Rodriguez studied the tactical display, where the Nexari fleet had begun to alter its formation. Their smaller ships were pulling back, creating a clear channel through their center. Analysis. "Based on their power signatures, we think it's some kind of large-scale quantum weapon. They could be planning to demonstrate their capabilities by destroying one of our outer bases," Rodriguez concluded. "Show them backing down isn't an option." He turned to Santos. "How many platforms do we have in range of their fleet?" 23 primary weapons, plus the asteroid defense grid. "But sir, if we reveal our hidden assets too soon, we might only get one shot at this," Rodriguez agreed. "But if they deploy a superweapon first, we might not get a shot at all." He straightened. Decision made. "Order all platforms to maintain cover but charge weapons. The moment they power up their main gun, we show them exactly what they're dealing with." The next few hours were tense. The Nexari fleet continued its advance, now well past Saturn's orbit. Their formation had tightened, creating an arrowhead with their largest vessels at the tip. Energy readings from their lead ships continued to climb. Multiple quantum signatures converging. Sarah reported, "Whatever they're planning, it's imminent." Rodriguez watched the power readings spike. "All platforms, prepare to fire on my mark. Target their primary weapon emitters first, then their command and control nodes." The Nexari struck first. A brilliant beam of energy erupted from their lead vessel, so bright it overwhelmed the optical sensors. When the glare faded, one of humanity's automated defense stations near Jupiter was simply gone, along with a chunk of the small moon it had been monitoring. "Energy discharge detected," Santos reported, her voice steady. "Complete destruction of Defense Station Ajax. No survivors." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. They just showed their hand. "Now we show ours. All platforms. Execute Operation Thunderbolt." Across the solar system, humanity's hidden weapons revealed themselves. Asteroids split open, revealing massive rail guns, stealth platforms decloaked, energy weapons charging. And from Ceres, a massive burst of electromagnetic energy erupted, aimed directly at the heart of the Nexari fleet. The aliens' perfect formation shattered as dozens of their ships suddenly lost power, their quantum systems disrupted by the E-impulse. Before they could recover, Rodriguez's weapons platforms opened fire. Railgun slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds, tore through their ranks. Energy weapons struck with surgical precision, guided by Sarah's quantum targeting systems. Direct hits on multiple vessels, Santos called out. "Their shields are failing." "Wait, something's wrong." The disabled Nexari ships were changing. Their hulls seemed to ripple, and suddenly they were gone. Not destroyed, but shifted somehow out of normal space. Phase shift technology. Sarah's voice was tight with concern. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated." "Casualties?" Rodriguez demanded. We destroyed or disabled 27 of their capital ships. But the rest? Santos shook her head. They're already adjusting their shield frequencies. Our weapons will be less effective now. Rodriguez studied the tactical display, watching as the Nexari fleet regrouped. They were no longer advancing with the same confidence, but their remaining ships were now moving in a more defensive formation. More importantly, they were accelerating. They're not retreating, he noted. Even after losing those ships, they're still coming. Lieutenant, get me Earth Command. And Dr. Chen. Yes, Commander. How quickly can you adapt our quantum targeting to account for their phase shifting? Working on it now. But Commander, they're not just hiding their ships anymore. These energy readings suggest they're preparing to phase shift weapons directly into our platforms. We need a new strategy. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Then we'll give them one. Because if they think that was our best shot, they're about to learn what humanity does when backed into a corner. The battle for Earth's survival was just beginning, and both sides had now shown they had surprises in store. But as Rodriguez watched the Nexari regroup, he couldn't help but smile. They had expected to find a primitive species, easy to conquer. Instead, they'd found humanity. Adaptable, resourceful, and absolutely unwilling to go quietly into the night. Titan's Gambit. The surface of Titan glowed with an eerie light as Sarah Chen's experimental quantum phase laboratory powered up. After the initial battle, she'd convinced Admiral Hayes to let her relocate here, closer to the front lines. The moon's thick atmosphere and distance from Earth made it perfect for testing dangerous new technologies. Power levels stable, her assistant, Dr. Raj Patel, reported. Quantum matrix is holding at 97% coherence. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the test chamber where their prototype phase shifter hummed with barely contained energy. They'd learned more about quantum physics in the past week than in the previous decade, largely by studying the debris from destroyed Nexari ships. Begin test sequence alpha, she ordered. In the chamber, a small drone activated, its newly installed quantum drive pulsing with blue light. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the drone flickered and vanished. Phase shift successful, Raj exclaimed. Quantum signature is stable. And wait. His expression changed. We're getting readings from multiple points in space-time. The drone isn't just invisible. It's existing in multiple states simultaneously, Sarah finished, her heart racing. Just like we theorized. The Nexari aren't just shifting their ships out of phase. They're quantum tunneling through multiple realities. A priority alert cut through their excitement. Admiral Hayes' hologram appeared in the center of the lab. Dr. Chen, please tell me you have something. The Nexari fleet is accelerating towards Saturn, and they've deployed some new kind of weapon platform. Sarah gestured to the test chamber. We've cracked their phage shift technology, Admiral. More than that, we think we've improved on it. But we need more time too. Time is something we don't have, Hayes interrupted. Their new platforms are generating quantum singularities. They're going to try to tear Saturn's rings apart and use the debris as kinetic weapons. Sarah's blood ran cold. The devastation from that much mass being accelerated toward the inner system would be catastrophic. How long? Hours at most. Commander Rodriguez is moving to engage with everything we have, but without a way to hit their phase-shifted ships. Upload our prototype specs to the Aegis platforms, Sarah decided. It's not perfect, but it's better than waiting. The risk is better than the alternative. Sarah was already moving to her console, fingers flying over the controls. Raj, begin full data transfer to the Aegis network. Admiral, I'm heading to the front line. If something goes wrong with the phase shift systems, I need to be there to fix it. Hayes looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded instead. I'll have a ship ready in 10 minutes. Good luck, Doctor. The battle for Saturn began 3 hours later. The Nexari fleet had positioned itself perfectly, their quantum platforms already beginning to generate the gravitational distortions that would tear the rings apart. Humanity's forces, led by Commander Rodriguez's Aegis platforms, formed a desperate defensive line. All ships activate quantum phase protocols. Rodriguez ordered from his command center on Titan. Dr. Chen, are you ready? Sarah stood at a specially modified control station, monitoring the quantum signatures of every human vessel. Phase shift systems online. Remember, you'll only have about 30 seconds in shifted state before the power drain becomes critical. 30 seconds is all we need, Rodriguez replied. All units, execute attack pattern Delta. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for centuries to come. Human ships and platforms phased in and out of normal space, appearing inside the Nexari formation to deliver devastating strikes before shifting away. The aliens, caught off guard by humanity's mastery of their own technology, found their perfect formation shattered. But the Nexari were far from defeated. Their ships began adapting, their quantum signatures changing frequency to match and counter human phase shifts. Worse, their singularity platforms were still operating, the gravitational distortions growing stronger. We're losing coherence, Sarah called out as another human destroyer phased back into normal space barely seconds before its power would have failed. They're learning to track our quantum signatures. Rodriguez watched as the tactical display showed more and more red warning indicators. We need something they can't adapt to. Doctor, what about overloading the phase shifters? That would create a cascade of quantum detonations, Sarah protested. We'd lose any ship that tried it. But would it work? Sarah's mind raced through the calculations. Yes, the quantum explosion would disrupt their singularity generators. But sir, whoever delivers that attack won't be coming back, Rodriguez finished. He opened a general channel. This is Commander Rodriguez. I need volunteers for a suicide run. The response was immediate. Dozens of ships signaled their willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice. But before Rodriguez could choose, a new voice cut in. Sir, Lieutenant Santos called from her station. I'm picking up new quantum signatures. Massive ones, coming from Jupiter's orbit. The tactical display shifted, showing a new fleet of ships approaching at incredible speed. But these weren't Nexari vessels. Their design was clearly human, though unlike anything they'd seen before. This is Admiral Catherine Martins of the Sol Defense Force. A new voice announced on all channels. Sorry we're late to the party. Project Lazarus sends its regards. Sarah stared at the readings in disbelief. Those ships, their quantum signatures are perfect. How did they? We've had your research for months, Dr. Chen, Martins replied. Every failure, every breakthrough. Project Lazarus was built to implement your theories the moment they were proven viable. Now shall we show these Nexari what humanity can really do? As the reinforcements arrived, the tide of battle began to turn. The new human ships, with their perfected quantum drive systems, could match and exceed the Nexari's capabilities. Their weapons cut through phase-shifted defenses as if they weren't there. The aliens began to retreat, their singularity platforms abandoning their attack on Saturn's rings. But they weren't fast enough. Caught between Rodriguez's Aegis platforms and Martinez's Lazarus fleet, the Nexari forces were systematically torn apart. Sarah watched it all from her station on Titan, her mind already racing with new possibilities. The Nexari had come expecting to find a primitive species. Instead, they'd discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or defenses, but its ability to learn, adapt, and overcome seemingly impossible odds. And as the battle for Saturn drew to a close, she knew this was only the beginning. The Nexari would be back, probably with new weapons and tactics. But next time, humanity would be ready. More than ready, they would be waiting. The Mars Crucible. The Nexari High Command didn't wait long to launch their counterattack. Less than 48 hours after their defeat at Saturn, their remaining forces regrouped with a massive reinforcement fleet that emerged from the outer system. This time, they weren't advancing with arrogant confidence. They came with cold, calculated fury. Multiple quantum signatures detected. Santos reported from her station in the Mars Defense Command. They're using some kind of dispersal pattern we haven't seen before. Commander Rodriguez studied the tactical display, where the enemy fleet appeared as a cloud of shifting contact points rather than distinct formations. They're learning. Dr. Chen. Sarah hadn't slept in days, running on stimulants and determination. Their quantum signatures are deliberately unstable. They're trying to prevent us from getting solid targeting locks. Can we adapt? Already working on it. Her fingers flew across her console, adjusting algorithms in real time. But sir, there's something else. These energy readings, they're not just trying to hide. They're building up to something big. Admiral Martinez's hologram appeared in the command center. Our Lazarus ships are detecting the same thing. Whatever they're planning, it's orders of magnitude beyond anything they've tried before. Rodriguez made his decision. Launch all reserves. I want every ship and platform we have ready for immediate engagement. Dr. Chen, you said you had a theory about their quantum technology. Yes. Sarah projected a complex diagram onto the main display. Their ships don't just phase shift. They quantum tunnel through parallel realities. Each shift takes them through multiple dimensions. But there's a pattern to it, a fundamental frequency they have to maintain. And if we disrupt that frequency, then we might be able to trap them between phase states. But the power requirements would be enormous, and we'd need to get extremely close to their fleet. Martinez nodded grimly. The Lazarus ships can handle the power output, but getting close enough. Leave that to me, Rodriguez interrupted. Lieutenant Santos, signal all Aegis platforms. Initialize Operation Ghost Protocol. The next hour was a blur of preparation. The combined human fleet, Aegis platforms, Lazarus ships, and everything else humanity could muster, took up defensive positions around Mars. The red planet's orbit would be their line in the sand. The Nexaries struck first, their fleet suddenly crystallizing into perfect formation. Energy beams lanced out, not targeting the human ships but Mars itself. Where they hit, the planet's surface began to ripple and distort. They're trying to destabilize Mars' quantum state. Sarah's voice was tight with alarm. If they succeed, the gravitational effects could tear apart everything in orbit. Not if we stop them first. Rodriguez opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute Ghost Protocol. Now, what followed was perhaps the most audacious military maneuver in human history. The entire defensive fleet suddenly powered down, their quantum signatures dropping to almost nothing. To the Nexaries sensors, it would appear as if every human vessel had suffered catastrophic system failure simultaneously. The alien fleet pressed forward, their weapons still focused on Mars. They were so intent on their planetary attack that they didn't notice the subtle changes in the quantum field around them, not until it was too late. Phase shift disruption field at maximum power, Sarah reported. Ready on your mark. Rodriguez waited until the Nexaries fleet had committed fully to their attack. All ships, power up and engage. Dr. Chen, activate the field. Human vessels surged back to life, their sudden power spike catching the Nexaries completely off guard. But it was Sarah's disruption field that proved decisive. As it activated, the alien ships found themselves unable to phase shift. Trapped in normal space, their greatest advantage neutralized. Multiple direct hits. Santos called out. Their formation is breaking up. Wait. Her expression changed. Sir, their power readings are going critical. They're trying to force their way through the disruption field. They'll tear themselves apart, Sarah warned. The quantum feedback alone. She never finished the sentence. The space around the Nexaries fleet suddenly warped, reality itself seeming to bend and twist. Several of their ships simply vanished, while others appeared to fold in on themselves in impossible ways. What's happening? Rodriguez demanded. Quantum cascade failure, Sarah explained, her eyes wide as she studied the readings. They tried to brute force their way through the disruption field. The feedback is creating some kind of reality fracture. The effect spread through the Nexari fleet like a wave, ships disappearing or being torn apart by forces that defied conventional physics. Those that survived began a desperate retreat, but the damage was done. The massive alien fleet that had threatened Earth was reduced to scattered remnants in a matter of minutes. As the chaos subsided, Sarah's console lit up with new warnings. "Commander, the reality fracture. It's not dissipating. If anything, it's growing." Rodriguez looked at the tactical display, where a region of space near Mars now shimmered with impossible energies. "Can we contain it?" "Maybe. The Lazarus ship's quantum drives might be able to generate a containment field, but we'd need to coordinate perfectly. One mistake, and we could make it worse." Admiral Martinez's hologram nodded. "Then we don't make mistakes. Dr. Chen, upload your calculations to the Lazarus fleet. Commander Rodriguez, have your Aegis platforms ready to provide backup power if needed." As the human fleet moved to contain the quantum disaster, Rodriguez couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. The Nexari had come to demonstrate their technological superiority. Instead, they'd learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology. It was the ability to turn an enemy's strength into a weakness. The battle for Mars was over, but as they worked to stabilize the reality fracture, everyone knew this was just another chapter in humanity's sudden emergence onto the galactic stage. The Nexari had started this war expecting an easy conquest. They would end it having created something far more dangerous, a human race that now understood the true potential of quantum technology and wasn't afraid to use it. Humanity ascended. The reality fracture near Mars cast an ethereal glow across the command center's viewing ports. Sarah Chen stood before it, dark circles under her eyes, watching as the Lazarus ships maintained their containment field around the quantum anomaly. What had started as a disaster was becoming something else entirely. "The readings are stabilizing," she reported to the assembled command staff. "But there's something else happening inside the fracture. Something impossible." Admiral Martinez leaned forward. "Define impossible, Doctor." Before Sarah could respond, Lieutenant Santos' console erupted with alerts. Multiple quantum signatures detected. They're coming from inside the fracture. The tactical display lit up with new contacts, but these weren't Nexari ships. The vessels emerging from the reality fracture were unlike anything they'd ever seen. Sleek, organic shapes that seemed to bend light around them. "This is Ambassador Zera of the Quantum Conclave," a new voice echoed through their communications. "We've been watching your conflict with great interest." Rodriguez and Martinez exchanged glances. "This is Admiral Martinez of the Seoul Defense Force. You'll understand if we're a bit cautious about unexpected visitors right now." A sound like crystalline chimes, laughter, they realized, came through the channel. "Completely understandable. We've been monitoring your species for some time, waiting to see if you've achieved quantum awareness. The Nexari's attack accelerated your development, though not quite in the way they intended." Sarah stepped forward. "The reality fracture. You could have prevented it." "Yes," Zera confirmed, "but we wanted to see how you would handle it. Your solution was elegant, creative, very human." Martinez's eyes narrowed. "And now? Now we offer you a choice. The Nexari are part of a faction that believes younger species should be conquered or eliminated before they can become threats. We disagree. We believe in potential, in the power of diversity and innovation." "And what exactly are you offering?" Rodriguez asked. "Partnership. Your species has demonstrated not just the ability to understand quantum technology, but to innovate with it in ways we hadn't considered. The containment field your ships generated. We've never seen that approach before. You think differently than we do." Before anyone could respond, new alerts sounded. The remnants of the Nexari fleet had regrouped, and they were making one final push toward Earth. "Speaking of our mutual friends," Zera's voice held a note of amusement. "Shall we demonstrate what true cooperation between species can achieve?" Martinez looked at Rodriguez, then at Sarah. After a moment, she nodded. Lieutenant Santos, coordinate with the conclave vessels. Dr. Chen, I want you working with their quantum specialists. Let's show the Nexari exactly what humanity and its allies can do. What followed was unlike any battle in human history. The conclave ships moved in perfect synchronization with human vessels, their quantum technologies complementing each other in ways that seemed to defy physics. Where the Lazarus ships provided raw power, the conclave vessels shaped and directed it with impossible precision. The Nexari never stood a chance. Their remaining ships found themselves caught in a web of interlocking quantum fields, their phase shift technology rendered useless. Some tried to flee, others to fight. But the outcome was never in doubt. Enemy fleet neutralized, Santos reported, her voice filled with quiet awe. The Nexari are standing down. Not just standing down, Sarah added, studying her readings. Their quantum cores are shutting down completely. They're surrendering. Ambassador Zera's ship glided into view, its crystalline structure catching the light from Mars. And so ends the Nexari's campaign of conquest. But for humanity, this is just the beginning. In the days that followed, the true scope of what humanity had achieved became clear. The Quantum Conclave wasn't just offering partnership, they were offering membership in a coalition of species that spanned multiple realities. Humanity's unique approach to quantum physics, born from desperate innovation in the face of extinction, had proven to be exactly what the Conclave had been looking for. Sarah found herself working with scientists from a dozen different species, each with their own perspective on quantum mechanics. Rodriguez and Martinez began coordinating with Conclave strategists, integrating human military doctrine with technologies they'd never dreamed possible. You know what the funny thing is? Sarah said to Rodriguez one day, as they watched Earth's first official quantum gate being constructed in orbit. The Nexari thought they were preventing us from becoming a threat. Instead, they forced us to become something much more interesting. Rodriguez nodded, watching as human and alien ships worked together in perfect harmony. They wanted to keep us in our cradle. Instead, they pushed us to learn how to run. And now, Martins asked, joining them at the viewport. Sarah smiled, looking out at the quantum gate that would soon connect Earth to a network spanning multiple dimensions and realities. Now we show the galaxy what humanity can really do when we're given a chance to shine. In the years that followed, humanity would indeed shine. The quantum technology that developed during the war became the foundation for a new era of human innovation. The reality fracture near Mars, now stabilized and understood, became a research center where scientists from across the conclave came to study humanity's unique approach to quantum physics. The Nexari, humbled but not destroyed, eventually became reluctant trading partners. They never again attempted conquest, having learned the hard way that some species were far more dangerous when cornered than when left alone. And humanity. Humanity did what it had always done best. It adapted, innovated, and grew. The stars were no longer a distant dream but a highway. And the quantum realm was not a weapon but a tool for exploration and discovery. They had been pushed to the brink of extinction, and in response, they had become something greater than anyone, including themselves, had imagined possible. Not just survivors, not just warriors, but pioneers of a new age of quantum exploration and interspecies cooperation. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, everyone agreed, was exactly as it should be. The end.